Welcome back to the review, kiddos. That's like the creepiest possible thing that I could. It's like, could you think of a worse word to use there? Kiddos. Yeah, gonna review some more games. I know I do these streams incredibly sporadically, so I'm gonna take this time to remind y'all what exactly even this is. You've probably all heard me talk way too much about my dumb spreadsheet of all the games I've ever played on stream. And part of the reason I keep track of that shit is so that I can have this spreadsheet, the second spreadsheet, where I review the games that I've played. Let's get this guy out of here. So we're rating them out of 10, but it's also just kind of like a verbal thing, like I'm just sitting here talking about the games. That's the real review. The number, I always place too much importance on it. I always like freak out about like whether the number is fair or not, but you shouldn't think about the numbers too much, especially in relation to one another. But yes, I do have it color-coded, so I think if I were to type like a 9 in here, yeah, boom. That shit's so cool. That still blows my mind. The reviews one is public. It's shared in the descriptions of the other review streams. I don't know if it's in every single one, but the early ones it should be in there. So you guys should be able to access this if you want to check. I mean, here, let me do like a cursory scroll. Cursory, is that a cursor joke? If there's any that stick out, that those of you who have not joined us for the past few ones have, I don't want to check out, you could clip it and look back through it if you wanted to. So, for some dumb reason, I sorted the games like with Nintendo games at the top, because I was like putting series together, and then I was like, oh, I'll just put all Nintendo. I'll put all Mario games together. Oh, you know, Yoshi and like Wario games can go in there too. Oh, what about Paper Mario? Oh, blah, blah, blah. I'll just put all Nintendo games up there. And then now, whenever I play a new Nintendo game, I have to put it at the beginning. So we're gonna do Rhythm Tengoku Arcade first. Something else about these streams is I'm not going to play music in the background the whole time, but I'm going to listen to my own music. I'm going to listen to it just by myself, and I would encourage any of you to put on whatever tunes you'd like. I'm going to post a link in chat that's just to the part of the playlist that I'm listening to right now. This is the Grapefruits Jams playlist. It's just a bunch of songs that I like, so if you really want to hear that, you could go to Grapefruits Jams and start at, what is this one? It's part of the Dust Force soundtrack. Cider Time. Go to Cider Time by Lifeformed, the Dust Force soundtrack, if you really want to have the full immersion experience. But I want people to be able to put in their own music. I don't want to have to deal with like copyright shenanigans. I guess I could do the thing that Lark does, where music doesn't show up in the VODs, but I don't have that set up. So it's not going to happen, at least not today. Anywho, I just like to have tunes in the background, but I don't want to like have to force people to listen to the tunes that I want them to listen to. Okay, let's get moving here. Yeah, these are, I think these would be a great stream to just put on in the background. Somebody's like, I'm playing Dead Cells while I listen to this. There's going to be almost nothing going on visually. It's just a spreadsheet. So, I'm going to try to get a little faster at these because they are... I'm playing more games than I'm reviewing. Like, we've got so many games to do, and I'm only a certain amount through, and I've been doing this. This is like, I don't even know what number episode this is, but I've been doing it quite a few episodes, a few streams. Anywho, so Rhythm Tengoku Arcade is a weird port of Rhythm Tengoku for the GBA. It's made by Sega and Nintendo. It's a rare collaboration between the companies. I was able to play this through a Dreamcast emulator that has Naomi support, which was a type of arcade machine that Sega was working with at the time, I guess. This is not a necessary play. It is definitely, like, if you've played Rhythm Tengoku, you basically got the full experience. There's a set of levels in the arcade version that's like the tempo up, harder versions that are kind of neat, but honestly, if you just look up a video of them, you'll probably get like about as much as if you had played them. They are hard. They're very difficult, actually. Not like impossibly difficult or anything, but they're a lot more difficult than their normal counterparts. And I think they're literally just faster. But they have unique graphics, which is kind of cute. And there's some other graphical changes. There's like a weird... It's not like perfectly one-to-one. They like upscaled a lot of the graphics. I don't know exactly how it was done. In the Twitch Scraps video, I noted that there was a girl that in the original does not have an uwu mouth, but in the arcade version does. I suspect that was a Sega move. Those fuckers that made Super Monkey Ball gave her an uwu mouth. What cocksuckers. Fuck. What emulator do I use for arcade shit? See, for this one, again, I used the Naomi support on, I think it was Flycast, or I forget which Dreamcast emulator I used, honestly. But usually I use MAME, M-A-M-E, and MAME is kind of weird to use. It's not made for, like, casual use, but you can... I mean, I'm a casual, and I have, like, wrangled it into being usable. It just takes a little chicanery, a little bit of getting to know the program to, like, figure out exactly what to do. It's not too crazy. Like, at no point did I need to code, which is essential for me, because I fucking suck at coding. But getting certain games to work can be a little bit of trouble too. Like, it's all about like what version of the game. It's like the version of MAME that you have has to sync up with the dump of the game that you're using. So there are some old versions of games that are supposed to work with old versions of MAME, but the new version won't like support them. It's weird. And it's really hard to find information online about it because everybody involved with the project is like, please, for the love of God, don't get us like fucked over by copyright. We don't want like these companies going like, oh, you're distributing ROMs illegally? Wow, we're gonna sue you. So it's all very hush hush. So kind of hard to get into, honestly. But if you can figure it out, then it's real nice. So it's going to be hard, again, to number rank this. I would say it is, for the most part, just kind of a lesser way to play Rhythm Tengoku, which is Rhythm Heaven Silver. That's just the name of the like translation. I should probably have it listed as Rhythm Tengoku there, whatever. But I would say it's a little lesser, even though the graphics are more like high fidelity and it has new levels, just because it's like you have to go through all the arcade bullshit. Like you have to fucking like put in a coin, you gotta like go to a certain level, and it's like you have to select like a group of levels. You can't just do one minigame at a time. You don't just progress through them normally. It's kind of weird, and it's clearly a game that has been taken from a single player experience and just like crammed into a multiplayer experience, or not multiplayer, but like arcade experience. There is multiplayer. I guess that's worth noting. It's the first game in the series to have multiplayer. I never actually played the multiplayer with anyone, but I assume it's functional. Maybe that's like the fun part of it. But I don't know. I'd give this like an 8. Honestly, like the arcadiness kind of takes away a lot of it. It's like not a game that works perfectly for an arcade, but I do appreciate. There are things I like about it. That being said, I don't even know if I would suggest you like play this game. Just play Tengoku on the GBA instead. Or, get Rhythm Heaven Silver. Like, that's really what you want. The arcade version is an interesting curiosity. But honestly, like, the fact, like, the format of, like, how you select the levels and shit just kind of makes it too clunky to even really recommend. This is a rare example of a high number grade game not getting recommended, but that's kind of how I feel. Okay. Now we can scroll way down. Way down. I hate it when fucking Matt McMuscles does that. Like, I hate it kind of in like a love-hate way. It's like whenever he says, and then the sales went down, and I'm like, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. And he goes, way down. And I'm like, ah! It is funny, though. It is funny to a certain extent. I know you don't like getting pressured, but can I confirm that you'll be doing more glitch huntings for Pokemon games? Man, the only time I don't like getting pressured is in a fighting game. No, I don't know. I have no idea. If I did, it would be for Gen 2, because Gen 2 is also broken. I know Gen 3 has some glitches and shit, but I don't know. Probably not. I would I'm gonna play other Pokemon games, but I don't know if I'll do a glitch hunting for them. If I did, it would be Gen 2. Anyway, so Windowsill. These 3 games, Windowsill, Sandcastles, and Metamorphabet, are all by Vector Park, who is a creator that I respect a lot, actually. I respect their works, at least. I don't know, they might be like a Nazi or whatever. I don't want to commit. But Windowsill is awesome. Gotta be one of the best kids games ever made. Metamorphabet, too. This is like their most actual game-like game. I guess some of their other ones, there's like levers. Some of these are on the Flash Games list, some of their games. There's levers and Feed the Head. Feed the Head was cool. But very surreal games with very clean vector art graphics that all have like... I feel like they apply a physics engine to a lot of the movement, because everything just feels like it moves very like naturally, and everything has like a good weight to it and shit. The animation and like the sound design is so satisfying. Like there's so many little moments where like, I don't know, I'm like thinking about that one thing that you pull apart like a Russian doll. There's like a big circle and you like pull off a half of it, and it kind of like resists a little bit, and then it goes and just like pops off. And it's just a very satisfying, everything about it is very just viscerally, kinetically satisfying. And that's like a trademark of all their games. They're all like that. Otherwise, it doesn't really have like a story or anything. It's just you're guiding this car through a series of like surreal rooms, and there's like a very light puzzle element in each room. Like it's really like, honestly, like I'm such a fucking dumbass when it comes to puzzles, and this game is like pretty light for me. Like it requires almost no mental effort to get through. It's basically just like pay a little bit of attention and you will get through the rooms. I guess there's like the closest thing to an actual puzzle near the end, but even that, you just brute force it. So, very fucking cool game. I don't know, this is like a 9 out of 10 for me. It's kind of short, but not, for me, not short enough to like matter to actually like mark it down. I definitely would recommend, just know that it's kind of a short experience. And there's not really any like deeper meaning to any of it. It's just a really satisfying, cool, like soothing game. That's the video that on the main channel was called a slow run, because I beat it in. This was back in the time when I still was like, any game that I beat in one sitting is a speed run. I don't think it was still during that time. That was a long time ago, but very fucking cool game. I'm trying to think about like the music. Does it have good music? If I have to like think about it, that probably means it's not. That means it's at least not memorable. So whatever. I think it's just like ambient sounds, but just a bunch of really cool stuff. I could go through like describing all the specific shit, but you really just have to see it for yourself. It's kind of, some of it's kind of indescribable. Just a great vibe to this game and these games. So Sandcastles, I mean, I'm instantly gonna actually give this one a really shitty score. Sandcastles is kind of meh. It's just kind of a little creative tool thing. I mean, it's very limited as a creative tool. It's just a little thing where you create your own sandcastles on a beach. And you can create like different patterned ones and like twirl them around. And you kind of like, it has that kinetic element to it where you like pluck them from the ground and sort of like pull them up and like the designs just sort of unfurl. And it looks really cool. And then it's like the waves come up and wash them all away after a little while. And it's cool, but that's literally all there is to it. And I think it just needed a little bit more. It feels like an interactive like screensaver or something. Maybe if you automated this, like it could make for a really fucking awesome screensaver, but like with a random element. But as a game, I don't know. Like I'm a guy who has a loose asshole. No, like loose requirements for what constitutes a game, and even this feels pretty anemic to me. I mean it's a free game, but they could have done a little more with it, I think. Who even makes sandcastles at the beach? I just dig a hole. Did you guys see that video that's like some girl, it's like some TikTok or something. It's this chick on the beach, and she's like filming over her shoulder, and she's like, "I got my boyfriend a shovel," and it just shows you just see the guy just digging a hole just furiously in the background. It's like, you give a guy a shovel on a beach, you know he's gonna dig a huge hole. I was like, the masculine urge to dig a hole. Anyway, Sandcastles, I don't know, it's like, it's like neat. I'll give it like a 2.5 out of 10. But it's just, I don't know. It's barely worth playing. Like, just watch me play it for like 5 seconds in that one Whack Games stream or wherever I played it. You'll get the essential experience. Like, there's really not much more to it than that. It does have the, like, you know, the kinetic part of it that does feel good, but I don't know. It's just kind of lame compared to their other shit. Even Levers, which I was kind of so on, had just more of like an actual video game to it. More like actual thought that you had to put into it rather than just being... It's like either that or they should have made it have more creative like, I don't know. What am I trying to say? Like, you should have had more creative control or like more tools to like do different shit. As it stands, it's just very simple. Whatever. Ragging on about it for too long. Metamorphabet is awesome. This is a true baby game. It's literally about the alphabet, but it's like through the lens of the surreal vector park imagery, which is really cool. And it's, again, very clean, very like satisfying. It's got a little less interactivity than something like Windowsill or Feed the Head. It's basically just a solid, it just goes through all the letters from A to Z. And, the Fez soundtrack just started up on my headphones. Based. Talk about relaxing. But, like, my imaginary child would play the fuck out of this game. Like, I would totally give this to my kid if I had a kid. Just because it's really cool and creative and visually interesting, and it would teach them the alphabet. And a bunch of weird words. It's not like A for apple. It's like A is for arch and amble. And then it like represents those visually by having an arch like walk around in like a weird little animation. Very cool. Yeah, I don't know. There's exactly one puzzle in this game, and it's the letter Q, and they just have you assemble the letter Q from a bunch of different things. I don't know why. It's like, is Q supposed to be a letter of extra importance? Maybe if you were trying to do that, then you would mention that it also always goes along with a U, which is kind of fucked. Actually, there's like qua or whatever. I always remember that from Scrabble. There's some word where it doesn't. But yeah, I feel like it's not quite as good as Windowsill. It just doesn't make you engage with it. It is also just kind of like a slideshow, like an interactive. It's like an interactive video more than anything else. But it's got that element. It's got that kinetic stuff where you can like just like grab things and like move them around and like tug on like the nose of one of the fucking like enemies, one of the like characters in the game or whatever. It's definitely a far step up from Sandcastles. I think Sandcastles was never, I don't know. Sandcastles was never supposed to, it doesn't seem like it was supposed to be anything super significant, but as it stands, I still just don't like it much. Whatever. I'll give this one like a 7.5, like an 8. It's a cool game. Maybe one of the best children's games I've ever played in my life, which is not saying too much. Yes, and I would recommend. It's also cool to just check out, even for adults. I mean, you're gonna feel like a fucking goo sitting there having the alphabet mansplained to you, but if you can get over that, then you're in for a good time. It's another one where you could probably watch my stream of it and just that would substitute the experience more or less, but whatever. Windowsill is the standout. That's like the best one, and Feed the Head, I think. So Zium Garden is kind of a collection of a bunch of games. It's sort of like later on in this list we're gonna have like whack games. What are some good ones? Yeah, like The Nightmare of a City, and what's another one? Oh, Forests Are for Trees, where they're kind of like insignificant, like insubstantial experiences on their own, but the Zium Garden is like a virtual museum that's like a collection of a bunch of these different just weird virtual environments and virtual art. And I know what you're thinking. This man just said virtual art. Is this motherfucking NFTs? No, it is not motherfucking NFTs. It is better than any NFT you'll ever see in your life. But it's a pretty cool walking sim. I don't think there's really any gameplay to it besides just walking around looking at stuff. You like go through portals sometimes to go to a different world. And it's just a bunch of different weird virtual art. Like the things that I really appreciate the most are the things that I don't think could have existed in real life. Like there's a bunch of sort of like impossible shapes or like things that have a weird visual effect that doesn't really make sense. That stuff's really cool to me. And I don't know, just all the like weird surreal shit. It's a cool idea having a virtual museum that is just, and it's like, you know, you could make a virtual museum and just have one guy make all the stuff, but no, actually get a bunch of different things from a bunch of different people. And it turned out really cool. I'm sure there's even some stuff that I missed in there because it wasn't like huge, but there was quite a lot to look through. And some of it's kind of lame, but all of it's at least a little interesting. And there's a lot of like, you know, in a virtual museum, you can do some crazy shit, like allow the people in the museum to just pick up one of the things and just carry it around with them. One of the like exhibits, you know, so they can kind of break the rules in that way. It was pretty interesting. Overall, like a 7.5. It's like, you know, sometimes I give something a 7.5 because there's a lot of things I love, but a lot of things that I hate. This one has a lot of things that I love, but it's overall just a walking sim. I do kind of like games to be a little more involved in the interactive medium, but it has interesting stuff in that regard. But it is kind of just a place to like a virtual space to walk around and like see cool shit, which has value. I like it. Now, this, my friends, this is one of the best games ever made. Furi, super underrated. I guess it's, you know, people who have played this game go off about it all the time, but I feel like it just doesn't have the recognition that it deserves. This is one of the most fucking fun games I've ever played. And yes, it has issues, but overall, it's just one of the most fucking tight experiences I've ever had in my fucking life. Like, I think I would give this a 9.5. Uh, Basically, it's a boss rush game where you fight like 10 bosses, I think. And that's not counting the DLC, which actually adds 2 more fights. Teehee. But I think there's like 11 fights in the main game. Anyway, it is a super fun, like high octane one-on-one combat game where you're fighting a bunch of like colorful character, larger than life bosses, and it's got a really cool story. It's got kind of a like you have to sort of figure out what the fuck is going on as you go through the game, and it really feels at the beginning like they're just bullshitting you. Like they just are saying just like random whatever just to like keep you interested. But no, there actually is stuff to piece together, and it's a pretty interesting and compelling story. I won't like spoil it, but the ending's really impactful, and I really, really like it. And it didn't, some games kind of, it has kind of a twist to it, I guess. But it's not like this super in your face, like cringy twist. It's like really well done, and sort of adds replay value too, trying to piece that shit together. I'd say one of the weaker parts of the game is the like lead up to every boss, where they just have you like walking around this environment while the like rabbit dude hypes up the boss to you. I do like the visuals in those areas, but it's just kind of tedious slowly walking through those big areas, especially when the camera angle keeps changing and then it makes your guy walk a different direction. I think, isn't there a setting to let him just auto walk through those parts? I think that kind of fixes that complaint, actually. I think that is a thing in that game. You can like auto walk there. But regardless, those parts are a little on the weak side. And the combat is just so fucking fun. You guys know that I kind of struggled with Sekiro. Furi is just perfectly in that sweet spot where it's just hard enough to be a nice, compelling challenge for me, but also to not, I don't know, it's like not a cakewalk, but it's not too difficult at the same time. It's not just complete CBT, which is a great balance to get. I think in hard mode, it started to become CBT, but even that was like doable. And that's hard mode. You know what you're getting into there. Furier mode, rather. But some of those bosses were fucking ridiculous. I would say it felt like some of the bosses were, this might have just been a me problem, but it felt like some of the bosses were disproportionately difficult in Furier mode. Like some of the later bosses, in fact, a lot of them I got on like my first try, but then like bosses 4 and 6 were like nigh on impossible. They were like ridiculously difficult. At least for me. I don't know if that was an experience that other people had, but the difficulty curve felt kind of weird in Furier mode. Otherwise, like, just such a fucking fun game. It's got, like, it's a very fast-paced, like, you got a dash, you got a parry. The parry feels amazing. You get health back when you parry, which is great. It encourages you, of course, to be super aggressive. And the fucking music is just on another fucking level. Like, a lot of the same musicians as Hotline Miami, so that's good shit. One of the best soundtracks ever made, and it adds to the combat so much. And I feel like the visuals in this game can sometimes be a little bit lacking. Like, when I first saw footage of this game, I was like, just kind of looks generic. I don't know if I'll play it. Doesn't look that like unique or special, but trust me when I say it is special. This is a great game. The visuals are just a little, sometimes like the models don't look amazing, and some of the character designs just are kind of like fucking Overwatchy, if that makes any sense. And it's not just because one character looks like Mercy. Maybe it's a little because one character looks like Mercy, but they've got a slightly generic design, some of them. but you're not even really looking at the design of the bosses a lot of the time because you're just looking at this overhead view of them like spewing out 10 trillion bullets at you or whatever. The game makes you feel like a fucking badass. It makes you feel like an absolute god of combat, and it's just unmatched by any other game in that regard, in my opinion. I know that's what a lot of people said about, again, Sekiro, but this was that game for me. Anyway, absolutely would recommend. I feel like, what else can I say about this? I could like get into spoilers. I really love the ending. That's all. I don't know. Play it for yourself to see. Or watch my speedrun. I think I had it in there. It also has a speedrun mode. This is one of those indie games that comes with a speedrun mode. So when you've played through the game once, then you can select a version where it just cuts straight to the action. Just boss fight, boss fight, boss fight, which is really good. That's such an amazing quality of life feature. And makes it so replayable. Like, it's pretty rare for me to actually, like, you know, pick up a game that I've played a while ago and just be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna play through this game again. But I've actually done that with Furi a few times because it has that feature, and I love it. It's also got English and Japanese voice acting, so if you want to feel like you're in a cool anime, you can switch it to Japanese voice acting and have everybody be like, Masaka! So yeah, Furi, awesome game. One of my favorite video games of all time. Oh, and let's talk about the DLC. This is kind of going to end on a sour note. I feel like their approach to DLC is really bad. They've had two very anemic, kind of overpriced DLCs. Because they had the One More Fight DLC, which added one more like normal fight, and then there was one like hidden meme fight that's like, it's like a one-man boss rush of like all the other bosses basically, but it's just this, he looks like fighting Polygon Team. It's just this like featureless Polygon man. So that fight I never beat. That guy is called Bernard. The One More Fight that they advertised, that one I beat, and that one is fine. It's called, like, I don't even remember what the guy's name is, but it was fine. I didn't fight him that many times, but it was a cool fight, you know. But I think the DLCs are like $6 or something, and they're pretty anemic in terms of content for that. I know I'm sounding like Jason Anderson or Joseph Anderson or whatever here, but I think it's pretty true for these. And then they released another DLC that is, you just play as a different character. And can I bring up an image of this? Because when I saw the image where they said like, oh, we got this like new Furi DLC, I didn't even realize that this was a new playable character. In fact, is this even now I'm looking at this image and I'm like, is this the new character? I think it is. So here's the new character, barely any different from, like, visually at least, from the normal playable character. I don't know why they didn't make it look just a little bit more fucking distinct. And then it's like, again, like $7 or $8 to get to play as a different character, and like I'm sure their playstyle is like wildly different, and they said, oh, you know, it like lets you experience the game again for the first time. And that's cute, but that's bullshit. Like, I don't know, I'll play it at some point. I will check it out and maybe we'll see how much bullshit that was. But the DLCs are kind of weird. I know they released that game Haven and it didn't do very well, so maybe they're trying to just like make money off of Furi, but like I can't really blame them that much for that. But I don't know, it felt like maybe these two DLCs could have been combined into one and sold for the exact same price as one of the DLCs. Whatever. I'll play that other one at some point, and I will go back and try to beat Bernard at some point too. That's been on my list forever. Because I gave up on Bernard, and then I was like, you know, at some point I'll just like grind out that fight and try to actually do it. Because I think it's doable. It's just a really long, brutal fight. It's just incredibly long and difficult. That's the only problem. I'm gonna take a little drink of water, excuse me. You get the other free when you buy the new DLC. Is that real? Whack. Hold on. You guys may notice too. I got like a nose whistle. I gotta blow my nose. Hold on. My music paused at the same time that I did that, so it was just complete awkward silence and me blowing my nose. All right. Okay. So please don't touch anything. This is a cool game. This is, I believe, the main channel video of this game is my most popular video on YouTube with like 2.3 million views or something like that. The please don't touch anything open quotes speedrun, which in my opinion is a really random ass video to be my most popular video, but I guess it is. That's something that's always baffled me, is why that one in particular got so many views. But it is a cool game. It feels kind of derivative. It sort of feels like they like, could you have put a little more effort in to distinguish yourself from Papers, Please? You know, because it's kind of got that Stanley Parable quality of you're figuring out the ways to a bunch of different endings, and it's kind of got like a comedic sort of vibe to it too, and you're figuring out these sort of puzzles. It's a little more puzzle based than Stanley Parable. In fact, a lot more. There's a lot more like detection and clues. It's even kind of Obra Dinn-esque, where you're looking for like clues and trying to figure out what exactly to do in certain situations. Because you're at this control panel and you're like operating these controls and you don't really know how it works. But isn't it a little weird that it's like pixel art game where you're sitting at a desk, like moving stuff around, and it's got please in the title? That always bugged me a little bit. I don't know if that might just be a complete coincidence, but that always just bugged me. Like maybe they were trying to like get some of the like fucking like spray off of Papers, Please as a success. Was that game even a big like actual success, or was it just like a critical darling? Yeah, some of the endings are incredibly cryptic. I remember having to get a guide for a few of them. I remember figuring out most of them on my own first playthrough, though. Some of them are pretty intuitive, or at least like you can figure them out. There is also a VR version of this game that I have also played. I have not streamed it though. I played it on my like shitty phone VR thing that I think I don't even like have the right phone for anymore. I still have the VR headset, but I don't think it would work with my current phone. But that one is cool too. It's like completely remade, so they just did it in 3D, and they've got some extra stuff where like, you know, when a nuke goes off, you like the building like rumbles and shit like that. I think they added some stuff where there was like a black light mechanic that you could like shoot around the room. I think they had that in the original too, though, right? But it's a pretty cool game. I would give it like maybe like a solid 8. It's got good music. I really enjoy the music that plays when you're just sitting at the beginning before you press the big red button. But then the actual game's like normal like main loop music gets kind of grating, I guess. But man, that like title music is fucking fantastic. But it's a pretty like clean game. It's well made. It's got fun puzzles that are sort of like outside the box and kooky. And it's got funny references, and it gets a little cringy sometimes. It does reference Rick and Morty. No, it references Back to the Future. But in my video, I said Rick and Morty jokingly, and then I got a bunch of comments from people who didn't understand that it was a joke. That was fun. Cool game. Would recommend. I need to move faster through these. Look at how few we've done. Oh my god, how long has it been? 40 minutes. Okay. Yeah, there is a Papers, Please ending. There's a direct reference to Papers, Please. I forgot about that. There's direct references to a lot of things. Okay, so Badland. This has got to be one of the best mobile games I've ever played. It is basically the way I would describe this game is like if Limbo, the indie game, the like dark indie game, and Flappy Bird had a child. And that I know how dumb that sounds, but it really is the truth. It's like Flappy Bird controls, but in the world of Limbo, basically. More or less, it's like a silhouette world. It is really fun though. It's like really well made, and it's just got a like linear sequence of a bunch of levels where you move from left to right, avoiding obstacles. There's cool power-ups where you like multiply or where you like turn giant or turn tiny. It's like semi-basic stuff. It's stuff that hasn't, it's all been done before by Mario, but it's very cool and sort of unique and satisfying. And the main character has a really nice like sort of weight to them that makes it satisfying to control. And since it's just jumping, it makes it perfect for mobile. I've played it all the way through on mobile and on PC. It's on Steam. So super fucking good game. It's got that dumb Game of the Year edition shit tagged onto the title, which, as we all know, you can literally just call your game Game of the Year edition and like nobody can sue you. So it basically has no story. It has like the slightest suggestion of like something happens in the final level, but it's very vague, to the point of just being nothing. But the actual game is fun. It is a very compelling actual video game. You basically, yes, it is just a spherical bird. It is just an orb bird. It's pretty cute. It always looked like they had like, I always thought it looked like they had really big brains. Like it's a bird with it's like a really nerdy, like book smart bird. Okay, so how would I rate this? I'm going to give this one an 8 too. I know I give a lot of games 8 and 8.5. That's like my, what is the IGN thing? Like 7 out of 10 or whatever that they give to like most games. But I mean, you got to consider the fact that a lot of the games that I play are games that I basically like and enjoy. So, no, I'm looking it deep into my heart, and I think this is more of a 7.5. If it had a little more story, it could have been like really something special. But as it stands, it's functional, it's cool, it looks good, it sounds good, plays well, nice. Pretty original like idea too. Works well for mobile. Again, one of the best mobile games ever made. How many games still need to be reviewed? That many. And I actually have more to add that I've played recently. That being said, a lot of these are going to go by pretty fast. Like fucking Baby Pac-Man is going to take like a second. And I don't know. Like some of these games are not going to take nearly as long. Anywho, I'm kind of hoping today, it's not looking like this is going to happen, but I'm hoping today that we can get to the NES games and just go and just get like all of these NES games out of the way. Because NES games are like 1/10 of an actual game. Okay. 30 Flights of Loving. This game is fucking sweet. So cool. This is like, oh man. And the thing is, the game is like 15 minutes long. But it's so awesome. It's just, it feels like an interactive movie. It's like a game that has cuts in it where it's really hard to describe. But it's just a very straightforward sort of like action drama sequence that you play through as one of the characters in like this heist. And it's very funny and very surreal, and it has a very sort of unique, cool style to it. Just lots of like funny like jokes made in actual gameplay. I really like the part where you're like running on the table. You burst into a room where like people are having a banquet, and you're like standing on the table, and you have to run down this really long table, just like smashing all the fucking like plates and cups while everybody looks at you. There's just a bunch of like fun moments like that. It's super exhilarating and cool. And it's, I don't know. It just feels like it was made with so much love, and passion too. It's just got a great energy to it. And it's kind of weird. 30 Flights of Loving and Gravity Bone, like if you get 30 Flights of Loving on Steam, it'll come with Gravity Bone. They kind of go together. I think I'm probably just going to rate them exactly the same. Because to me, they're kind of part of the same package, even though I think Gravity Bone was made after 30 Flights of Loving. It actually might have been made before. But I'm not sure. Like, I might be mixing up. The table thing might have happened in Gravity Bone. I don't know. To me, they're both the same game. To me, Gravity Bone is just the second chapter of 30 Flights of Loving. But they've also got, like, actual gameplay. The part near the end of Gravity Bone, I think, where you're taking pictures of birds, kind of loses me a little bit. And you're doing, like, that precision platforming on, like, the end of flagpoles. But I don't know, it's just, I love the, like, breakneck pace of these games, too. It's kind of why I don't like the bird part, because it kind of slows down for that. But yes, absolutely would recommend. I don't know. These are, again, I beg you not to compare the numbers. Like, I know this is the same score that I gave Half-Life 2 Episode 1. They're completely different games, but I would give both of these a 9 out of 10. I just love them so much. It's maybe just a personal thing. I don't know. Like, maybe I'm just a fucking dumbass. And, like, I just have, like, a weird personal vibe for these, but I just like them. Would recommend, and I think, are they free on Steam? They're, like, really cheap on Steam, if nothing else. Let me search. 30 Flights of Loving. $4.99 for 30 Flights of Loving. Mixed reviews! Mixed reviews? What do you mean, mixed reviews? Oh, fuck you. Please visit the devs page here and download the free game Gravity Bone. If you like Gravity Bone, you will like 30 Flights of Loving. Oh. Maybe Gravity Bone is the first one. Mixed reviews. Suck my fucking penis. It's a great game. It's a great game. Just a fun little burst experience. Anyway. Fucking assholes. It's because it's real art. That's why it got mixed reviews. Whenever I see something like that, I'm just like, Taxi driver got booed at Cannes. Taxi driver got booed at Cannes. Taxi driver got booed at Cannes. Fucking Pulp Fiction got booed at Cannes Film Festival. Okay. Anywho. Thomas Was Alone. This is another really cool game. I think, for some reason, off the bat, I like have the instinct to give this one an 8.5. Really cool platformer. This game is kind of a, it's like a story sort of drama platformer. Not drama. It's really cool. It's a story about, like, an AI gaining sentience, and you play as just a bunch of different, like, little squares and, like, rectangles that jump through this sort of simplistic angular world. It's kind of like Flatland in a way, where it's a bunch of shapes and they're all characterized, and there's sort of, like, interpersonal drama between them. It's very cool, and it has fucking voice acting. Like, there's a narrator, Stanley Parable style, that, like, reads out what's happening and what the different characters are, like, saying and thinking, which is very charming. And the voice, I think the narrator does a really good job bringing that across. And also, on a gameplay level, the puzzles are fun, and they kind of have a narrative. The puzzles are worked into the narrative really well, where, like, you know, near the beginning, the different shapes are kind of, like, working together, standing on each other's backs to, like, solve these puzzles, and they all have different abilities, which really makes it fun too. And then, like, near the end of the game, it's like they all start to sort of, like, go their separate ways and, like, go paths that only are accessible by them specifically, and they sort of, like, end isolated from one another when they're, like, quarreling and shit like that, which is really cool. The puzzles are actually really fun and cool, and I like the platforming. The platforming just feels good. in the trailer for the game, they say like the jump in Thomas Was Alone is one of the best jumps ever devised in any game, and it's like some quote from some reviewer, and they kind of oversell it there. But yes, the platforming does feel good. It is satisfying to play, and I love the little sound effects. Like there's like a little Mario sound effect that plays whenever you jump, but it's custom to every character. So like the big fat one goes like boom. You know, they all have like. It's funny how much personality they were able to squeeze into these fucking squares. Is basically like that's my like one sentence review of this game. And I think it's got like, you know, a basically compelling narrative. It's not anything fucking like transcendental. It's not like the most mind-blowing thing you'll ever see in your life. But I think it's well written, well executed. It's got a satisfying conclusion. Good shit. And it has DLC. I think this was free DLC. Benjamin's Flight. Didn't really feel like it added that much to the game, honestly. Like, I don't even know if this is like a must play. I don't know. They should have just made it like an update that just comes with the game, because it's just a few extra levels where you play as a new character. I don't even remember what their ability was. They had like I think they had a jetpack. They could like fly, basically. I am gonna be perfectly honest and say I don't even really remember what the themes or purpose of the DLC was. I think it was like what life is like inside the computer world after the events of the end of the main game. I think that's what it is, and it's like pretty simple. It's not as good as the main game in my opinion, but it's fine, inoffensive. It's not like bad or anything. Okay, Avalanche 2, Super Avalanche. This game has a lot of strengths and a lot of weaknesses. To me, I think they just like overcomplicated it a lot, and I think the art style is bad. I don't like the way this game looks. It's got a very sort of like Nitrome-esque, which Nitrome games don't necessarily look bad, but like they've got a very safe art style where it's like cutesy pixel art, and it just doesn't like, they weren't like talented enough at pixel art, like making adorable pixel art, to like have that be the central visual style. It just looks kind of bad. It just visually looks kind of lame. But the original Avalanche is one of my favorite Flash games, a really fun roguelike procedural platformer where you're platforming up on a bunch of things that are tumbling down from the sky. It's really, really fun, and Super Avalanche is still really fun. But it's almost like the fucking Flash game has a stronger visual identity than the goddamn polished second game. I think Avalanche 2 has like sidebars that look like the Sega Game Gear too. I don't know why they decided to style their game. It's like the graphics don't look Game Gear-esque. They're way too high like resolution for that. But for some reason they decided to go with the Game Gear, which is appropriate because I think this game was largely ignored and forgotten by history. But it is a fun game. Another thing that I don't really care for is the fact that they have all these like different, like customizable character, unlock the different outfits, and play as the different character, and there's not even different characters that have like different abilities, but it's like put on this gem that makes you like jump 10% higher. That's not even a thing in the game. I don't know. There's like a bunch of weird fucking stat modifiers that you put on and like start at a different level. And there's a bunch of shit that just I feel complicates the very simple and satisfying premise of the original game. But the actual video game, playing the game, feels good. Which is sometimes all you can ask for. It's just a satisfying platformer. It's a little floatier. You jump a little higher in Avalanche 2 and fall a little slower. But I think that works out well. One of the most satisfying things is just chaining together a huge combo of like bouncing on enemies' heads and wall jumping between falling blocks without touching the ground. And the game actually rewards you for that too. It calls it surfing, which is really fun. That's like one of the most fun parts of the game. But man, those visuals fucking suck dick. I would give this like a 6.5. they really should have kept it simple in a lot of regards. I think they really overthought how complicated it needed to be, and they should have just like honed the very specific basic fucking gameplay of it rather than adding on all this extra bullshit. Yeah, I would barely recommend this. I don't know, if it's on sale, maybe check it out. If you're really hurting for a roguelike indie platformer. It's basically the opposite of Downwell, I'm just now realizing. And Downwell has a really nice, solid visual style. So it's the opposite of Downwell even in that regard. Okay, here we are. Fallout New Vegas. Guys, I just think Fallout and me just don't get along. I just don't think that Fallout New Vegas... this is the only one I've played, so maybe the other games will be different. But like, I've heard that this is like the most beloved one, and I don't really get into these types of games, I think. I remember trying to play Skyrim when I was younger, and it just didn't click with me. I was not a fan. There's a lot to love about New Vegas, though. It's got a lot of personality. I mean, I like... my favorite thing about it, my favorite experience in Fallout New Vegas is just wandering around the desert, listening to the fucking cowboy radio, and just seeing just random shit, just having like random encounters and just going fucking buck wild, going insane. Just like random NPCs and character quest lines and shit. However, I just never feel like I can get to the point where I really like sink my teeth into the game and start enjoying it on like a deeper level. I just feel like that has never happened, and I've tried to play it twice now, and both times in the middle of the playthrough I just kind of like lose interest and go, man, I just don't care about what's happening, and I don't care about like doing all these characters' quest lines. The game is so mind-bogglingly huge to me, and I just don't care about exploring all of that. Like, Elden Ring has such satisfying moment-to-moment gameplay that I think it was like worth it just exploring all around the world. But in Fallout, it's like, and like when you're exploring in Fallout, what are you gonna find? Like the dinosaur statue, I guess. I don't know. Like, you're gonna find some fucking NPC who's gonna talk in like cowboy stereotype voice, and it's making it sound like I'm an offended cowboy. You're gonna get some like dead-eyed ass NPC who's gonna be like, "Howdy, you're new to these parts, aren't you? I'm the blah 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 blah, and we're part of the blah 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 blah." And I'm like, wow, I do not give a single fucking hoot about this. And it's just like the gameplay, the moment-to-moment like gunplay is not very satisfying. I do sort of enjoy the like survival element. I like sort of scrimping and saving and, you know, selling off stuff that I don't need and combining. I really like the aspect where you combine your broken weapons into like one strong, pretty durable weapon. That was fun. But it's just not a very satisfying game to just play like in like moment to moment. Really, a lot of what I get out of this game is haha funny cowboy meme and glitches, because these games are so fucking glitchy. Bethesda games are so fucking glitchy. Yes, I said it's a Bethesda game. You're all gonna need to hold on to your fucking hats, because I just dropped a truth bomb. It is a Bethesda game. It's on that fucking engine that they've been just dusting off and using over and over again for decades. But yeah, I could never get into it. And the world is so huge that like I feel paralyzed, because I'm like, I don't know, should I like put points into like being a hacker so I can like hack all these fucking consoles? I hate doing the hacking minigame though, and there's so many fucking consoles. Or should I put it into lockpicking and be able to lockpick things? Or should I be able to talk to people? And it's like the fact that I can't have it all like paralyzes me, and I'm like, I don't know what to do because I don't know what's in the game. Maybe it's one of those games that's really satisfying to replay when you like know more just what's out there, but it's like I don't know what to expect, so I don't know how to level, like how to build my character, and I don't know I don't know what to do. Like, and I also don't really give a shit about the plot of the game after Benny. I'm sorry. Is that the guy's name, that the guy that shoots you? This is gonna sound like an utter fucking caveman take. This is like the most unga bunga take of all time. But once I killed the guy that killed me, I don't give a shit. Caesar's Legion, like, suck my hole. I don't give a shit. I do not care about Mr. House or whatever. This fucking, like, JPEG on a screen that's telling me to go get the master key or whatever the fuck. I didn't care. So, I don't know. I don't mean to be rude. I'm glad people can get enjoyment out of this game, but I just found it hard to enjoy, honestly. And really a lot of my enjoyment did stem from just the lovely atmosphere. I really do like the atmosphere of the game, and the radio adds a lot to it. And the glitches. I just love the glitches. Like, that's sort of an unintended enjoyment factor, is just seeing what kind of fucked up shit will happen. Anyway, that's my rant. That's my ramble about Fallout New Vegas. I just couldn't get along with the game. So, and again, these numbers are my, like, personal enjoyment of the game. I would give this like a 6 for me. Like, it wasn't terrible. It's not like, oh, this is so fucking unbearable. It's just, it's so big, and I couldn't commit. I don't know. Maybe I lack the fucking stomach to commit to a huge game like this. But whatever. Like, no, would not personally recommend, but I don't know. If you like those kinds of games, maybe you'll get a huge kick out of it. I do kind of I like the weird sort of retro futuristic style, of course. That wasn't really something that was established by Fallout New Vegas, but I think the 3D first-person Fallouts was when they started to really lean into that aesthetic. Like, it was more of a cursory thing in the first two games, to my knowledge. All right. Oh, let me take a little drink of the fucking water here. Oh, this is that game that you muted the game. It's probably how most people are going to recognize this game. When I snorted and I muted the game instead of my own mic. Yes, that did happen. Knytt Underground. This is a game of many ups and downs. I have very complicated feelings about this game. It's a Metroidvania puzzle platformer type thing. It has really, I struggle to say it has really great visuals. Like 90% of the visuals are really great. It's got kind of a Pikmin-y style where there's like a lot of sort of macro, like small things where there's like huge flowers sort of looming. It's made by the same guy who made Night Sky and the original Knytt. And I think there's a few other Knytt games too, to my knowledge. Because there's the original Knytt, and then there's Knytt Stories, I think. Someone mentioned that in chat. That sounds right. But it's got this very cool, like, sort of, like, again, kind of like Limbo. There's a lot of silhouettes, a lot of sort of muted colors. A lot of it is really beautiful, and uses real-life images just sort of implanted into there. That's kind of another, like, Pikmin-y thing. Because Pikmin has those really realistic-looking environments, for the most part. But looks great, plays really great. I really enjoy all the little, like, platforming, like, puzzles that they have you do. There's, like, these little glowing ball things that you absorb, and they, like, make you take on different properties and sort of, like, fling yourself around the room. There's a lot of really satisfying platforming stuff, and it's, again, just challenging enough without being cock-crushingly difficult. It's a little on the easier side. It's not, like there's only hazards. There's not, like, enemies like in Metroid and shit. So it's a little easier in that regard. This game is very weirdly structured. It happens in, like, 3 acts, where it's like the first act you play like a little bit of the map as one character. The second act you play a little bit of the map as this, like, bouncy ball character, and then for the third act you play as both of them, and you get the ability to like swap between them. There's like one character that like climbs and runs around, and there's one that's just a ball, and you can swap at any time. And it's a really fucking fun mechanic that leads to a lot of the really interesting platforming puzzle moments. Just very satisfying. I love the sound effect of the ball bouncing around. Turn, 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 turn. It sounds like a kickball on the recess field, sort of. Can I look up a map of this game? Hold on. Knytt Underground map. I'm sure there's a full map. Yeah. The map in this game is what I could only describe as soul-crushing. Oh, good old J.is Games is supplying this image. I've been to that website before. I don't remember what for, but the name rings a bell. The map is just this massive fucking dense rectangle where every part is like taken up. Like there's something in every part of the map, and it's kind of a weird layout, and it leads to, I don't think it works terribly well. Like I said, it's just kind of soul crushing. Like it's an interesting idea, just having it all be in one giant rectangle and just like sort of packing the levels in there. And it works pretty well for the most part, but going around and getting some of the later like completion stuff is just like, again, soul crushing, because you're going through this huge, really sort of complicated maze. Yeah, it's like a cereal box maze. And it can just be really difficult to navigate around and figure out exactly where you need to go, especially when it's got this Metroidvania shit where like certain things you can only approach from one side and shit like that. It's not like unbearable, but it's kind of an iffy choice. That's one of the things that's kind of like so-so about the game. It is kind of interesting. Look at that. The beginning and end of the game are like right next to each other. That's kind of neat. But I never noticed that. The biggest flaw of this game, I would say, is the story. The creator tried to do this very like hipstery, like sort of self-aware, like meta bullshit that really ended up just going up its own ass and feeling really pretentious, and kind of the ending almost felt like hateful. It almost felt like mean. Basically, throughout the entire game, you have these two little fairy companions that are a little bit like Tattle and Tail from Majora's Mask. Bickering fairy companions that are like sassy and full of character, and I fucking hate hearing them talk. It's just miserable. There's not voice acting, but so much of the dialogue, I was just like, man, this is just so pointless, and I hate reading this. It's not like super cringy dialogue all the time. Some of it's kind of cringy. The character designs, too, like the actual models of the characters, are such an insane step down from the art style of the rest of the game. Like, the playable character and the two little fairies and all the other NPCs look ugly as fucking sin. It's, like, shocking how bad they look. It's just like, man, these just look fucking terrible compared to the rest of the game, and it just blows my mind how big of a discrepancy there is there. But basically, there's so many really like long-winded conversations that just feel like they're about fucking nothing, and then the ending has this whole thing where there's like a big like lead up to the ending, and it's like, oh, we're gonna do this awesome thing. The ending's gonna be so great, and then like literally the creator of the game, like his avatar in the game, like shows up and goes, hey, and then the game ended, ha ha ha, and then like basically just tells you to go fuck yourself for wanting an actual conclusion to the story. And it felt like he was trying to like pull the rug out from under my feet, but I'm not even like fucking standing on the rug, because I gave zero shits about any of the characters. I was just like, it just felt like such a dumb moment. And I was a bit reductive there when I said like, oh, fuck you for wanting an actual ending. But it like truly felt like just a really stupid, like pretentious nothing ending. And then there's like this whole thing afterward where like the main characters are talking and they're like, oh, like maybe let's just like make up our own ending. And then they like talk about like, oh, maybe this is what happened. And I'm like, man, this is so shit. Like, I don't know. Something about it just really didn't click with me. And I just hated it. I was like, if I gave any amount of shits about these characters, maybe this would be a little more impactful and cool to me. But I just don't. Like, it's just not very well written, and there's so much dialogue. And, like, yeah, you can kind of just mash through the dialogue and just play the fun Metroidvania otherwise. But it's a huge stain on the game, honestly. Like, it's an insanely mixed bag. So, again, if you want, like, a cool, like, pretty atmospheric, neat Metroidvania, this is a cool one. And I think it's a little underappreciated, actually, but it has some rough elements. It has some really fucking rough elements. Including just, like, expect the ending to just piss you the fuck off. Because it pissed me the fuck off. And I don't know, I feel like I'm the kind of guy who can buy into that sort of artsy-fartsy bullshit sometimes. But here it just didn't work for me. That being said, I would recommend the game. I would recommend it. It's just, it has issues. So what number do I want to give this? Like a 7, maybe? I'd probably give it a 7. Solid 7. But just, like, the story just sucks. It just sucks. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if the fucking creator of this game ever listens to this. But I'm sorry. The characters just look like shit and they suck. And I hate hearing them talk. Anyway. Gish. This is the rare Edmund Macmillan L, in my opinion. I am not a big fan of this game. I actually I got really frustrated at it. This is a game where you control a little blob of tar. Many of you may know Gish from The Binding of Isaac. This is one of Edmund's earlier games. Yes, it says gave up here. There's the rare gave up. It's like, basically the game is centered around, you're a little ball of like sludge, and the only way you can get like a high jump, the only way you can like get momentum is by like sort of compressing yourself down and then like going like boing, like sort of expanding off in a direction. That wasn't like the best way of explaining it, but that's basically how it works. And you can like stick to things and you can sort of make yourself more liquidy to like slide down tunnels. And it just felt like the levels were not well designed for the mechanics that you use to move around in that game. Like I could not get a fucking grip on it. The Steam version is bad. Is that true? Like, is there a version of this game where it doesn't fucking suck? Because I just got so frustrated at the controls. It just felt awful. It just straight up felt awful. And not only that, but I gotta say the presentation surrounding this game, I know it's one of Edmund M's early indie games, so it should be cut a little bit of slack, but it's got this kind of dumb story about, like, Gish has a big titty goth GF, and they were totally making out when she got kidnapped by Bowser, or whatever. It's just like a little cringy. I seem to remember it even has a spelling error in like the opening like story crawl, which that always blows my mind, because I'm like, did you show anyone else this game before you released it that would go, hey, you spelled a word wrong, you like said the wrong your or something like that? But I don't know if there's like a better version of the game. Is there? I don't know, give me more information on this, chat. I've never heard about this, if the Steam version like sucks or anything. But I do remember there was something about like they updated the Steam version and like actually removed some features from it. Is that what that person is referring to? Maybe, because I remember something about that. But I didn't get very far in it. It just wasn't very fun, and it was very frustrating. The visuals it doesn't look good either. Like it really just the very like muddled visuals. Like the only things that look good are like the animated characters, and those just basically look like Edmund M, Isaac enemies and shit. So yeah, really would not recommend. I don't know. It's got like a neat idea. This is like a 2 out of 10 for me. It was not good. Sorry, Edmund M. Huge L though in terms of like that game. Anyway, Guacamelee, Gold Edition. Now, I don't know. I have no idea what separates this from the normal version of the game or from. There's like Super Turbo Championship Edition. I don't know what distinguishes them all, honestly. This is normally the sort of thing I would like pride myself on knowing, but pretty based game. Another good action platformer Metroidvania. It's kind of got beat 'em up elements too, and even fighting game elements. Like you do combos on enemies in this game. Very fun, cool animation, cool art style. This is one of those games that has a lot of elements to it that feel kind of cringy. Like on paper, they sound cringy. Like it references a bunch of fucking like 2000s and 2010s internet memes. And a lot of the things in it are based around like Mexican stereotypes, like stereotypes of Mexican culture. On paper, that sounds pretty cringy, right? But it really isn't. Like playing through the actual game, the memes are a little overbearing in certain parts, but it's a pretty awesome game. I've never played the second, but I will at some point. I have it on Steam. But I played through this one twice, once off and one on stream. And it's really good. Nice progression of abilities. I like, you unlock more abilities and they just keep throwing crazier and crazier platforming challenges at you. And by the end, you're doing some fucking whack shit. And it feels really satisfying to do. Really cool soundtrack, too. Very Mexicana sounding, lots of like mariachi and shit, but it's like action like techno mariachi sometimes, which is pretty cool. Fun fucking game. I would give this like an 8. Like an 8 or an 8.5 maybe. Let's stick it at 8. It's got some like mildly funny dialogue too. It doesn't lean too heavily on the dialogue, but There's a mix of kind of funny and kind of cringy dialogue. Definitely would recommend though. It's awesome. Really cool visual style too. It's like, a game based around like Mexican stereotypes could be really like unimaginative and boring, but they went a really cool angle with it. They kind of like worked in like Aztec stuff too. Lots of really cool imagery. Very like bright and colorful. I really like the there's an ability that you unlock at a certain point. One, there's an ability that lets you turn into a chicken, which is fucking based. Just like Heretic, actually, I just realized. But there's also the ability to like swap to the Dark World, and the Dark World looks like it's like the Dia de los Muertos themed world where like all the dead are just like hanging out. And it's just a really cool idea. So Proteus, this is a cool game. Would recommend. I don't know what letter grade or what number grade I'm going to give this. This is a walking sim. It's a very sort of languid, peaceful walking sim where you just take a nice, lovely stroll in this like sort of lo-fi, like pixel art island. It's like a beautiful, lush island with a bunch of cute animals hopping around and shit. And I think the main sort of gimmick of the game is the sound. It's like when you walk through the world, it sort of populates the soundtrack with all these different sounds that are being created by the different things that you're seeing. And it's really cool. It's a very calming game. There's almost no gameplay. There's like some places where you can like warp across the island. That's about all you can do. And then there is a thing that like lets you progress. It's like you progress through the different seasons on the island. I guess like slight spoiler warning. And it's just a really beautiful game. It does a lot with a little. It makes a really sort of striking, gorgeous experience, but with not a lot of resources. I think it's just made by one person or maybe a small team. I'm sorry, I've been listening to the FTL title theme for 40 minutes. I have been listening to the FTL title theme for 40 entire minutes, and I just now started to get sick of it. That tells you how fucking good that theme is. There's a 10-hour version of the FTL title theme on the Grapefruits Jams playlist. Why is this in here? Literally 45 minutes of the same song. Okay, we're skipping to Sonora Deep Cover. Proteus is cool though. It's a fun, it's a cute sort of calming experience. Nothing actiony about it. I think this is one game that gets away with having like no gameplay because it doesn't need it. Like it's all just wandering around, interacting with the environment just by being there. You know, and there's like these little weird animals that you like can't even really identify what exactly they are, but they kind of like scamper away from you and go like ba-dum, 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 and make this little like they add to the music. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty short experience. I would give this maybe like a 7. It's not the most substantial thing, but it would be a good way to just relax. I don't know. Maybe someday if I'm ever feeling like omega stressed, I should just play Proteus because it's a very calming, relaxing experience. Okay, we're getting close to these NES games, guys. Super Meat Boy. Fuck. This was probably going to take a while. This is the common Edmund McMillan W. Mixed, you know, it's a bit of a mixed bag here and there, but this is one of the best, like, brutally difficult platformers ever fucking made. The controls in this game, original Meat Boy, not worth playing. Literally don't play original Meat Boy because the main star of the show in Super Meat Boy, besides the music, is the controls. It just controls like fucking butter. It just feels amazing to play and so satisfying. I love the sound effects of like the little wet splat when you like hit a wall and shit, and like the little like blood stain that you leave everywhere. Insanely cathartic, fun game. It's so fun to just like pound your head against the wall trying to beat one of these levels, and then you watch that replay where it has like 1,000 different little Meat Boys and only one of them makes it to the goal, and that's so satisfying. It's just a great, it's like they knew what was satisfying about a hard video game, you know. That being said, somebody said fuck the achievements, and that is a good take. Some of the achievements are just brutally difficult, although that's fine. You know, whatever. You're allowed to put brutally difficult achievements. Some of the Dark World levels and some of the bandages that you have to get and a couple of the character unlock levels kind of crossed the line into CBT for me, personally. Where I was just like, this just isn't even fucking fun anymore. Like, where it was just like, the level was either too long to be like, it was like, where you have to like set back like 5 fucking minutes every time you die, or there were certain levels that were just, the one that always sticks out in my memory is the one that, where you're like on a descending platform and there's just buzzsaws everywhere and you need to like walk back and forth very precisely to just navigate this like big endless like tunnel of buzzsaws, and that one just, I hate that one. Like some of those levels are just not fun and feel like they're not even really designed around the controls of the game. But man, oh man, if like 90% of that game isn't insanely fun, compelling, difficult, but like overcomeable. Even like a lot of those Cotton Alley levels are ridiculous, but they're still fun and they're still like a good challenge. Some of them are fucking dumb bullshit though. Like the last one, clearly by the end of the game, they leaned a little too hard into the like, tee, it's so hard meme. And it's like, never go that route. That's just bad. Like, don't do that. You can make your game brutally difficult. You can make it have, like, the trappings around it be like, oh, you're in hell, haha, isn't this brutally difficult? But once you start just making levels that are just meant to just be a fuck you to the player, it just, that's just miserable to me. That being said, this game's a 9 out of 10 to me. Even with all the flaws. I almost said 9-10. But yeah, goddamn, what a fun game. And oh my god, the soundtrack. Danny Baranowski hit it out of the fucking park for this one. I know there's, like, apparently him and Edmund have bad blood now or something. They had some sort of creative differences. It's never been officially confirmed what exactly happened, but they no longer work together. And future versions of Super Meat Boy, like the PS Vita version, I think, has an alternate soundtrack, and you can now access that alternate soundtrack on Steam, the Steam version, I think, in, like, the options. Which, fun fact, features a track in Cotton Alley from, what is her name? Laura Shigihara? I forget exactly her name. But the lady who wrote the soundtrack for Plants vs. Zombies, which is another great soundtrack. And it's a great track, too. But the normal soundtrack by Danny Baranowski is a fucking banger. Some of the best workout music. I'm not a guy who works out much. I used to work out more, which is to say at all. And it's some of the best exercise music you'll ever hear in your fucking life. It's just it gets you so, like, pumped up and charged. Charges your JO crystals real well. But yes, would recommend the game. If you are planning on getting Golden God, which I would say is, like, that's like the reasonable 100% completion. And then if you want to be an unreasonable completionist, go do the, like, Cotton Alley without dying once achievements and shit like that. But if you're planning on doing Golden God, be ready for some fucking bullshit. But there's a lot of great stuff too. And just playing through it casually is of course a blast. Okay. I'm gonna take another drink of water. These streams, I'm always, like, a little dry in the mouth because I'm talking just the entire time. I kind of feel bad about there ever being any dead air on these streams because it's literally just complete silence. Now let's enjoy the quiet. Okay. Now, Platypus. I didn't really get a kick out of this one, actually. This is a shmup, and when you look at pictures of this game, it looks really cool and unique. And it is cool and unique to a certain degree. But it's actually, it's just not very fun on, like, a basic level. Would you believe I just Googled the word platypus without the word game and expected it to show this game and not pictures of platypuses? But it is a claymation shmup where everything is clay models. It looks very cute, but in the end, it actually, I feel like it falls short of the concept. It's like, I don't know. It's just very generic. It's just a lot of, sort of generic shmup enemy ships, except they're made out of clay. And, like, yes, the clay is cute, the backgrounds are pretty cute, but I feel like they could have done more with the style to actually make something interesting. It's like none of the ships actually animate. There's no real, like, claymation. It's just they get damaged over time and then they fall down or they, like, explode or whatever. There's almost no what you would consider actual traditional claymation. It's just everything looks like clay, which is kind of disappointing to me. Like, you would want, I feel like I personally would want a more sort of surreal, kind of crazy Cuphead-esque animation style. And I know not every game can be Cuphead. Making a game that detailed in animation out of clay would be a fucking insane ordeal. But, I don't know. By the way, Cuphead DLC comes out this month. I'm pretty sure. Actually, it might be next month. It's one of the J months. It's one of the short J months. Cuphead DLC release date. June 30th, baby. June 5th today. all you Silk Song fucks out there, here's a little bit of advice. When you're waiting for a game to come out for a long, long time, just play other games. There's so many other games. You can just do that. And then you can have your, like, 1 month of hype before the game actually fucking releases. So, yeah, Platypus, a bit disappointing. Otherwise, it's just kind of your standard Gradius-esque shooter. It's not like a bullet hell or anything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would recommend this one, actually, sadly. I've heard some story about how there was, like, a Platypus 2, and it was like the creator got, like, fucked out of the rights for the game and, like, didn't make a cent off of it, even though he made the entire game, or some shit like that. There's some sort of tragic story about the creator of this game, so I feel bad shitting on it, but it was pretty mid, honestly. Like a 3.5. But it's one of those games that you would want to, I don't know, I feel like you would want to do more with the style, and they just kind of didn't. And it just comes out kind of lame. It just comes out like a very kiddie version of Gradius, or not Gradius. Am I thinking of Gradius? Fuck. Yeah, I am thinking of Gradius. Okay, Bit.trip Runner. Let's kind of review these two games in tandem with one another. Bit.trip Runner is a cool series that I feel has never really found its true potential. The first game is a little rough around the edges. It's like an auto runner where I feel like the idea is supposed to be that, like, it's somewhat musical, the way that you're jumping over obstacles, and, like, it plays little things to the music, but it's like, it doesn't feel like a rhythm game or anything. Like, it doesn't, it feels like it wants to be sort of a rhythm game where, like, the gameplay goes along with the music, but it's not very well done. And the visuals are kind of this weird mishmash of different, like, design ideas. There's, like, the main character is like a 2D 8-bit sprite that looks fine. It's like, okay, cool sprite, you did it. But then the rest of the world is like this shitty, like, 3D, like, part, like, voxel looking, like, sort of chunky pixel-y designs, and it just looks kind of ugly. And I feel like they could have had greater success if they had just gone full pixel art and just had a 2D game rather than this weird, like, 2.5D sort of ugly hybrid thing. And then another big flaw in the first game is just a lot of the levels just kind of suck. Like, there's one level early on that I remember was the reason I quit playing the game when I first played it, like, years ago. Because it was just a really long level with no checkpoints. I don't think there's any checkpoints in this game, except, you know, between levels. It was just this absurdly long level that was kind of, like, boring, and it was just like, if you fuck up even once, you go right back to the beginning. And it was just kind of tedious. I think the first game's generally a lot more unforgiving, and some of the later levels are fucked, but at least they're not boring. They're not boring and long. They're hard. They're incredibly fucking difficult and long. But it is rewarding to complete, and it is a fun game to a certain degree, but I feel that there's just a lot of stuff they could have worked on better. And the second game does improve on a lot of it. Let me see if I can just try to wrangle up a number for the first game, though. It's like, I don't know, like a 7.5, I would say. It's not perfect by any degree. But it's a neat game. I would say, I don't even know if I would recommend it, honestly, the first game. This one's right on the fence. I don't think I'm going to recommend it, but I would recommend the second. The second game, they kind of, like, I don't know, the art style feels, again, like they never really had just, like, a unified vision for what they wanted the art style to be. The second game kind of leans into being more of a comedy game. And a lot of it's kind of cringy, but a lot of it is kind of funny. They got fucking Charles Martinet to do the voice acting. He does like the voiceover for the game. He like talks in the intro cutscene and shit and says, "I'm Charles Martinet." And it's like, damn, how'd they fucking do that? Who did they know that knew Charles Martinet and was like, yeah, I'll get you Charles Martinet, fuck it. That kind of blows my mind that they did that. Like, because he must get so many requests for like, Mr. Martinet, can you be in our indie game? And it's like, I don't know, did he just go, yeah, sure, to one of them? I don't even know. But, I don't know. The second game, they cleaned up a lot of stuff. They put in checkpoints at reasonable places in some of the longer levels. I think that's a great addition. The art style at least feels a little more unified, because it's like they didn't try to do any sort of pixely style or voxel style anything. It's all just smooth now, which it still looks kind of ugly. It's just got that kind of ugly 2.5D style to it that just doesn't look amazing. But whatever. And it's got like a bunch of different playable characters. You can play as a fish with huge testicles, which is pretty funny. And I like some of the mechanical additions to this game, like the loop-de-loops that you go through, the fact that you can fucking dance at any time and it gives you extra points. I think that was actually like genuinely, it's funny, but it's also a really good addition for like high score leaderboards to make it so there's a really high skill ceiling for shit like that. Which is nice, but it's a very fun. Both of the games are fun to a basic degree. It's just that the levels in Runner 2 are way better than the levels in Bit.trip Runner 1. Like I think they're leagues better. They're just a little more reasonable too. Like some of the difficulty curve of Bit.trip Runner 1 was just fucked. It was all over the place, and it got really extreme near the end. Possibly needlessly so. Yeah, I don't know. You know, maybe I would give the original more like a 6.5. I'm actually going to change that. And then this game gets a 7.5. Because it's like, it's functional, it's fun, but I don't know, it feels like eating a fucking can of Pringles to a certain degree, but because there's nothing that really sticks with you. It's not like one of those exceptional, like it's not like Furi, where it's like one of those exceptional gameplay experiences that just like sticks with you forever. It's just good. It's just solid, like good. Is there a reason you haven't played the third entry? Just haven't got around to it yet. I don't know. A lot of series I do try to like play them in order, like in sort of a timely fashion, but some series I don't know, I'll play it whenever I get around to it. So yeah, GTA 3. GTA is kind of a weird series for me because I don't think I'll ever complete one of these games. I just sort of dick around in them. I think like, I don't know. I would be interested to see like a poll of like how many people actually complete GTA games. Because I know, you know, if you go to the Steam achievement stats for any of those games that have like an achievement per chapter, it's like 70% of people don't beat most games. But for some reason, I would expect the numbers for GTA games to be even more skewed, where like even fewer people beat the game, because the missions and like the story kind of don't wow me. Like they're not what I'm there for. I'm there for the sandbox, and I'm there for like amusing car crashes. I know how fucked up that sounds, but we all know what the real fun of Grand Theft Auto is, and it's amusing car crashes. And like jank too. These games have, the old Grand Theft Autos have good jank. But I think there are things to admire about this game. I think GTA 3 has a really great atmosphere, especially, I think it's like almost a masterpiece of atmosphere considering the time that it came out. Like early 3D platformer driving game, that they didn't have much to work off of. I mean, this was, all the stuff before this was fucking Kingsfield, and we've seen how that is. No, there was other stuff, 3D stuff before this, of course, but I don't know, it's got a good atmosphere, and I really enjoy a lot of the just like Fallout New Vegas, I really enjoy the radio stations and like hearing all the banter between like the radio hosts. It just sounds like it sounds so real, a lot of it. And I really enjoy the fact that they made unique songs and like licensed a bunch of like other songs too to play on the radio. That's always one of my favorite aspects of these games, is hearing all the cool songs. And some of the original songs for this game are actually really good. Like fucking Striped Summer by Dill Don't, which is the funniest like made up band name ever. But some of the songs are actually really good. What's the other one? See through you and I got you. That one's really catchy. And that's another one that I think is just made up for GTA 3. But yeah, really cozy actually. A lot of these games can be, especially the early GTAs before they got like more dark. But yeah, I didn't finish it. I'm probably never gonna beat that game. I have no real interest in it or in the actual like story or plot, but it is a fun experience. But the missions themselves, it leaves you wanting more fucking like substantial missions, or missions that aren't fucking like bad and bullshit. Some of them are fucking dumb to my memory. Like some of them are fine where it's like, oh, it's a street race, oh, this is fun. But then some of them are like, tail behind the van and pick up magazines that it drops off for like half an hour, and I'm like, I hate this. I don't know, it's a very mixed bag, the actual missions. But the sandbox element of it is really great, and I think even in this earliest example, because of course there's GTA 1 and 2, but does anyone give a shit about GTA 1 and 2? Like, they barely matter. These are the ones that really, like this and San Andreas and Vice City are the ones that really established a lot of the tropes of this genre. I don't know what I want to give it. I've been given a lot of like 7s and 8s, and I'm kind of feeling like that's where I'm at on this one too. I don't know. Yeah, like 7.5 I think feels good. I don't want to give the same score twice in a row. Do I even think, like, I almost want to be an asshole here and say, why would you play GTA 3 when San Andreas and Vice City exist? Like, those are just both better alternatives to it, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if that's definitive or not, but, which, by the way, the definitive edition... I don't know. Yeah, sure. I mean, let's not be an asshole. Yes, I would recommend it. It's fine. It's not like a must play, but it's a cozy enough, functional, competent, neat PlayStation game. PlayStation 2, I think. Yeah. If it was PlayStation 1, it would not be that. It would not work that well as a big sandbox. So I was kind of shocked at like how far you can see in GTA 3. Like, I know a lot of early 3D games have just shit draw distance, like Silent Hill and shit and Kingsfield, but in that game you can actually see pretty goddamn far, and it's impressive what they managed to do. I've heard a lot of good things about San Andreas. I've never played either that or Vice City. I just know them by reputation. But I guess just keep that in mind. That's the little asterisk after the yes here, is you could probably get a better... You probably want to play San Andreas or Vice City, but it's good. It's fine. Now we are finally on to the NES games, and I think I am going to try to just blitz through these, because I wanna. Now Tetris, all the rest of these, or a lot of the rest of these, are just like shit games. Reviewing Tetris feels like reviewing like chess or something, where it's like, what is there to say? It's a great game. It truly is a fantastic, absorbing puzzle game. I think it's kind of funny that so early on in gaming, they stumbled upon such a good formula for a video game. And it's easy to see why so many games were inspired by Tetris, and why there's so many falling tile games in the goddamn world. And I appreciate the simplicity to Tetris, because to those of you who don't know, it took me a long time to realize this, but a tetromino, which is the name for the shapes that are in Tetris, those are all the possible ways that you can arrange 4 blocks. There's no other shape that you can make with 4 blocks. It is impossible. That is, all the tetrominos that you see are all those, and it just feels like they didn't even it's like the game balanced itself, you know, just by existing. It's like it has those rules, and it actually created a very interesting game experience where certain blocks, you know, you have to react to the S blocks and the T blocks in a certain way, and then the other ones the square blocks and the fucking line blocks are kind of a freebie. At least, you know, this is from a casual perspective. I know people go fucking insane with Tetris, but I don't know. It's very cool. It's just a solid game. I guess, yes, a lot of the time it comes with a Soviet or Russian theme. But really, to me, Tetris doesn't even have any aesthetic. It's just colored blocks. But the NES version does have the Cossacks or whatever the fuck those are called, on the title screen and shit. It's barely worth mentioning though. It's Tetris. I don't know. 8 out of 10. Again, it feels weird. Yes, I would recommend Tetris. I remember I had the Game Boy version of Tetris on my 3DS, and that was the game that I played the most on 3DS, was fucking Game Boy Tetris. That should tell you how good Tetris is and how much it has held up. It is an actual fun game. I don't know. I just 8 feels right. I don't know. It's Tetris. How am I supposed to do this? All right. So now we get into the real meat and potatoes, the real fucking slop. Total Recall. A lot of these games I purchased from used game stores because I saw the AVGN review them. So a lot of these are games that I purchased knowing they would be terrible. Total Recall truly is bad. It's just a shitty platformer based on the film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and most of these games I've only played 10 minutes of because they're fucking unbearable. But all I remember about this one is you're walking down an alleyway, and then dudes pull you into the you're walking down the street and dudes pull you into an alleyway, and you have to fight with them in the alleyway. And I remember it just being really awkward, stilted, terrible platforming. Really uninspired, really just lazy way to translate the movie. It's about as fun as Street Fighter 2010, The Final Fight. It's just not fucking good at all. So 2 out of 10, no, would not recommend. Some of these are going to get out with a recommendation, but not all of them. Top Gun. Now, this one's actually half decent. It's like a flight simulator. It's kind of to those of you who watched my arcade game streams, it's kind of like Afterburner, where it's a sprite-based plane game. Pretty fucking good for the NES, honestly. It does a pretty excellent job of emulating it. It even emulates the sounds of airplanes pretty well on the NES sound card. And the visuals, it actually looks pretty good, and it plays decently. It's just that about 10 or 15 minutes into the game, there's a sequence where you have to land the plane that I have only successfully completed one time in my entire life. And it is so unfathomably fucking difficult. I don't know if there's a specific trick to it or what. But it's just every once in a while in the game, you have to land the plane or you have to refuel in midair. And the amount of finicky fucking finesse that it takes to do that is I can't do it. So I've only ever played the first 10 or 15 minutes of this game, gone, wow, this is pretty impressive for the NES, and then not been able to continue because the game just has a fucking wall at a certain point. So, I actually did try using the mothership with this game, and it did not improve it. This one I would almost recommend. If it didn't have that refueling bullshit, I almost would recommend it. But no, and I'm going to give this maybe a 3 out of 10. Uh, it's not good. Ghostbusters, truly one of the worst fucking video games I've ever played in my life. It's actually unbearable. Like, it's just not even funny how bad it is. It's like shitty. The best thing about this game is when you boot it up, it goes Ghostbusters in like that shitty like NES bit crushed ass voice sound where they tried to like synthesize voice. It goes Ghostbusters. That's the best part of the video game. Like, you turn on the game for 2 seconds, don't press any buttons, you have experienced the apex of the Ghostbusters NES experience. It is Drek. It's just, there's like 2 or 3 loosely connected mini games. It's like you drive to a location and you have to like catch ghosts, and it's all of it is clunky and miserable. There's like adventure game elements that are really poorly explained. It's CBT fucking levels of difficult. It's really long and tedious. It is just the absolute worst of all worlds. It does have a pretty decent chiptune rendition of the Ghostbusters theme, but that is the only song in the game, and it will get grating, and it does get annoying over time. 1 out of fucking 10. A true piece of shit, Ghostbusters NES. When we discuss the depths of badness that games can go to, I often bring up Ghostbusters NES as an example. You guys have probably heard me say this before, like, oh, you think you know bad games, play Ghostbusters on the NES or something like that. Okay, if I had said that would be douchey. And I never say douchey things, huh? Okay, so Fester's Quest, no. Fester's Quest is a fucking Addams Family game where you play as Uncle Fester. It's basically a shitty Zelda clone. It's not quite as offensively bad as like Ghostbusters. It's not even as bad as Total Recall, but it's definitely bad. It's just an unfun, like, top-down isometric action game, open quotes action, that's just got a fucking, like, lame-ass, sort of incomprehensible overworld. And it's just really boring, and at a certain point, it gets any amount of difficult, and you just stop playing because there's no reason to continue playing because there's nothing interesting about the game. This one also, I guess, tiny good thing about it, the title screen music is a pretty funky, fun rendition of the Addams Family theme on the NES. So, yeah, really big thumbs up to the title screen of this game, but otherwise, no. 2 out of 10. This is anybody else thinking about dots right now? Like, this is a cherry dot. This is a fucking orange dot. Like lime dot. I'm just eating a bunch of dots. That's what all these fucking ratings are. Okay. So, yeah, fuck Fester's Quest. It's not a fun game, but it's not as offensively bad as some NES games. And I kind of think, in retrospect, the AVGN kind of went a little too hard on it. All things considering. Adventures in the Magic Kingdom is a Disneyland game. It's a game where you just go into Disneyland and you, like, talk to mascots and shit. And they're like, go solve the trivia puzzle of, do you know Disney? And it's, I don't know, it's pretty lame. It's got a bunch of different mini games, and I remember some of the mini games being actually kind of fun. There was like a minecart one. There was one that simulated 3D space movement that was kind of neat. It was, of course, really rudimentary, but I always thought that was kind of a neat visual effect that they managed to sort of simulate. It's kind of like that old screensaver with the stars going past, you know? Just very simple 3D space movement. But it's, of course, it's not like actual true 3D space movement at all. But I don't know, it has some neat aspects to it. It's mildly funny, but it's nothing exceptional. I don't know. It's one of the better games. Like, I'm going to give it a 3, right up there with Top Gun. You know, actually, no, let's give it a 2.5. It's not as good as Top Gun. It's just kind of lame. No, would not recommend. Overall, the lesson I want you to take from this is that there's, like, 7 good NES games total. Just most random NES games are just, like, bad. And holy fucking shit. Here's the absolute cream of the dumpster fire crop It's Joshua. I don't think it would make much sense to give a 0 out of 10, but if I could, I would to this game. This is a bootleg game, I think. Is it a bootleg? Does it count as a bootleg? It's not officially licensed by Nintendo, and it is a religious game. It's a lot like if you've ever had a fucking like TI-80X calculator, graphing calculator that had that box moving game where you like shove boxes around. I think it's called Shove It. It's a lot like that. It's just one of those really excruciatingly boring like tile-based games. And it's also religious dogma on top of it all. It's supposed to be like the story of Joshua, and it also has voice synthesis like the Ghostbusters game. It says, "Be courageous, Joshua," which I've quoted quite often. But this is one of those, here's a common thread in Christian games, and we saw this on Lark's stream just earlier today. He played 2 Christian games, I think maybe 3. One of them was Super Noah's Ark 3D, which the AVGN also reviewed. Religious games, particularly Christian games, are all about like indoctrinating children, though. That's what they're really all about, because they always come back to like quizzing you on your Bible knowledge. It's like a weird, super strong common thread in Christian games, for whatever reason. So the actual game is just completely nothing. It's just total tedium. It's the fucking like terrible calculator game that just has no value whatsoever. I don't know if the game even has music off the top of my head. I don't think it does. It is kind of a fun collector's item because it's like a different looking cartridge. It's like a black cartridge and it's like shaped different than other NES cartridges. But yeah, what a fucking dog water game. It is truly terrible, and like on an ideological level, I hate it too, because it's just used to indoctrinate children through video games. Truly terrible. Genuinely, probably like, you know, I'm not gonna go lower than a 1 on this list, but this is probably my least favorite game I've ever streamed. Okay, now Rambo. This game is roughly on the same level as Total Recall, and in fact, I think I'm gonna give it the exact same score. It's like a shitty action platformer where you shoot a gun. A lot of it takes place just like navigating these really weird paths in the woods, where it's like there's a bunch of parallel, like adjacent running paths, and you have to like go back and forth between them. There's like these weird doors in the bushes. Very confusing, very unfun, very bad, very weird. I don't know. I don't remember if it had any like good music or anything. Nothing leaps out in my memory. I just remember it being like totally fucking trash. It had like a decent, I remember on the title screen it has like a burning helicopter or something that's like an actual like half decent looking sprite. But it's fucking dog shit. It's a 2 out of 10. Maybe no, like 1.5 out of 10. I'm really trying to like accurately portray these. Like I could just go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, but I'm trying to be fair. No, would not recommend. Karate Kid, no, would not recommend. It's another side-scrolling platformer, but it's got to focus around like, you know, the combat, and you do like these sort of like cage matches with other people. I found it fucking impossibly difficult. But the controls are not terrible. They're not like, it controls like half decently. It's just very difficult, very frustrating. And there's nothing to love about any of these games. This is an LJN game, which I think a lot of these are LJN games. To those of you who don't know, LJN was a recurring character on the AVGN videos. They are just a company that made terrible retro games. So if you're ever playing an NES game and you see, oh my god, Windows, please. Saving an image takes like 10 times longer when you're streaming for some reason. If you see this logo on an NES game, chances are it's fucking dog shit. Chances are it is absolute trash. And Karate Kid is a perfect example of that. I don't know. This one's slightly more competent than some of the others, maybe like 2 out of 10. In retrospect, I'm going to give Total Recall a 1.5 out of 10. Actually. Karate Kid had like something slightly going for it. Adventures in the Magic Kingdom was like slightly better. Top Gun was sort of neat. I would, actually really thinking about it, I think I would give Top Gun a 3.5. I'm going to be really fucking kind to Top Gun. Bad Dudes. Bad Dudes is bad. Dudes. It has one good joke in it. I guess 2 good jokes. That's the opening text crawl and the closing text crawl. If you've ever seen the screen of like the green background and there's that dude that looks like Duke Nukem saying rescue the president. Hold on. Let me bring it up here. The classic line, are you a bad enough dude to rescue the president? Are you a bad enough dude? But this is sort of it's kind of a meme. At least I've seen it around on the internet. So yes, this is from this game. There's also an ending screen where you rescue the president and he's like, hey lads, you're fine Americans. Let's go get burgers. Ha ha ha. Or something like that. Which is less memed, but equally funny. The game is terrible. It's like Double Dragon. They were basically trying to do Double Dragon. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up. It's barely functional, incredibly difficult. The visuals are bland. There's just nothing to it. There's like really those 2 screens are the only funny or interesting thing about this game. It's, I don't know. The combat is like, at a basic level, barely functional, which is that 0.5. Otherwise, I would just give it a fucking 1. And it does have a train level, which is based. But even the train level is fucking lame and dumb and bad. Because it's an NES game. They didn't invent fun until way after the NES. Alright. Double Dare. This is another truly pathetic video game. This is... I don't think Double Dare even exists anymore. It's an old game show. And it's just a trivia quiz show, basically. So this is an NES game of a discontinued trivia show that is, of course, going to have a bunch of questions that are all related to, like, 80s pop culture that I'm just not going to understand. So, I don't know, maybe somebody who's older than me could find more joy in this game. But to me, it was just, like, basically unplayable. Like... It was, and even if it had been more modern, it would just be an incredibly boring quiz game. I think the one interesting thing about it was that it had sort of a Nickelodeon Guts-esque, like, ending platforming segment, where it's like, the winner of the quiz game gets to do this, like, trial, and it's really weird. It's like a weird platforming thing, but that was also bad and dumb. At least it has something besides just the trivia show in it, though, to be fair. Sorry, my throat's getting dry again. We're close. We're real close to being done here for the day. No, absolutely would not recommend. Truly no reason to play that game. They didn't even... there wasn't even anything funny. Like, we were looking for, like, some funny questions, but they didn't even have anything like that. Now, Bo Jackson Baseball... this is actually a respectable NES game. I'm going to be perfectly honest here. Like, this one's like a 5 or something. It's a functional, decent baseball game. And I'm not the biggest fan of baseball. I'm not the biggest fan of baseball video games. I'm not the biggest fan of NES games. But this NES baseball video game is actually pretty good. Especially considering it's an NES game. Like, good sound design. The music is actually really catchy. I mean, at a certain level, it's just a fucking baseball game, but it's quite functional, and it's kind of impressive how much they were able to do just on the NES. There's even a sequence where, at the beginning of every game, there's like a pretty lady comes out and sings the national anthem, which is pretty funny. But yeah, it's actually kind of a competent game. I don't know, like 5 or something. Oh god, fucking... Is this Haku's theme? It's like the one that's the same as 1010's theme. No, it's just 1010's theme. This is not 1010's theme, though. It's got a picture of Haku. Or no, that's not Haku. Who's the, hold on. Who's Hinata's brother? Neji. It's Neji's theme. Sorry, you guys can't even hear the music, but Neji's theme just came on. But it's mislabeled as 1010's theme. Fake Naruto fans. Okay, anyway, Bo Jackson Baseball. Fucking sure. Sure. I don't know. Just, I feel like among NES games, yes, it's worth noting that this is an acceptable NES game, and it's still pretty rudimentary, but it's not bad. One thing that always impressed me in this game is how good the bat coming in contact with a ball sound effect is, considering it's the NES. I always thought, how did they make it sound that good on the NES? They actually did a crazy good job at that. Super Spike V-Ball is another, functional sports game. I feel like this one... Why do I not like this one nearly as much, though? Because I feel... Bo Jackson Baseball, me and my friends have genuinely, booted up and played every once in a while. Super Spike V-Ball, we booted up and played once for, 5 minutes, and then we were like... It's just the same game of volleyball over and over and over and over again for eternity. There's really no variation. It's just a competent volleyball game on the NES, but there's just nothing else to it. And I don't know. There's pixelated booba, but otherwise there's just nothing bringing me to this game. And I don't know. There's more... It's more action oriented, whereas the baseball thing is more strategy oriented, where there's a little more depth to it. But Super Spike V-Ball is just a very simple game. It feels like a Flash game where there's just no content, and it's I don't know, why would I play this? So no, I don't think I'll recommend this. But it is competent and functional. I'd give this a 3.5 probably. No, 3. Actually, no, let's just leave it at a 3. It's fine, but I just have no reason to ever play it again after playing it for 5 minutes once in my entire life. All right. Just got 3 more NES games to go here, and I think that's just about all the NES games on this list. Oh no, we've got Kart Fighter, and then there's some that I reviewed a while ago that are up there. Punch Out and shit. We made good progress today, I think. Getting through to the end of the NES games is, to my mind, goal. In fact, did we clear more than... I think we did, yeah. More than one entire page. That's good. That's good progress on this fucking spreadsheet. I say this every single stream, too, but I really gotta try to fucking keep it up here. Keep reviewing these games and keep doing these streams and just get caught up, because part of the difficulty that I have doing these reviews is that some of these games I have barely any memory of, fucking Total Recall, for instance. So some of these games are a game that I played for 5 minutes 2 years ago. I think it's going to be way easier to review these games and maybe do it a little more in depth when it's games that I just recently played, One of these streams, I'm just going to go through all the arcade games. That's going to be fucked. All right. So Golf on the NES. This is the fucking Satoru Iwata game. He worked on this game, and they put it... Infamously, this game was in the Switch source code. It was every Switch has a playable version of Golf on the NES on it, but it's not accessible. It was just in the system. Which was kind of weird. Cool. This is another game kind of like Bo Jackson Baseball that is a functional sports game where you play as fat middle-aged Mario looking dude. I don't know if it's ever been confirmed if it's Mario that you're playing as or not. But I don't think it's supposed to be Mario. It just kind of looks like him. But it is not a terribly absorbing game, in my opinion. I just don't find it as fun as Bo Jackson Baseball. And the real kicker to this is it doesn't have any music whatsoever. There is literally no music, which is just bad, in my opinion. It's just kind of a boring game. But it is functional. The gameplay is functional, and it is impressive how they managed to simulate golf on the fucking NES. Just similar to my amazement at Bo Jackson Baseball. But no, I don't think I would recommend this one. My song is buffering like crazy. What is going on? It just went to Offspring Fling Mother's Day, and it's just buffering over and over again. Am I about to go offline? If I go offline randomly, it seems like my internet's kind of having issues right now. Whatever. Anywho, we're going to try to real quick crank out Contra and Ghosts and Goblins here before my fucking internet cuts out. Contra, one of the best NES games. This is one of the good ones. That being said, it's like a 7, maybe. I don't know. Even that, actually, it's more like a 6.5. Would recommend. It's a fun game. Again, it's like, you know, if you're on a desert island with an NES and the entire NES library, this is one of the ones to check out. But it's not like, dude, you need to play Contra, you know? It's such an unforgettable game. Oh, it's the best thing ever. It's just like a good run and gun shooter. There's a lot of, you know, DNA got carried over to Cuphead much later on, which is, of course, a game I love. But it's a very satisfying run and gun shooter. It's sort of bullshit, but this is the game that I believe... I don't know if it's the first game to have the Konami code. I think there was like one game before it or something like that. Something annoying like that. But it's one of the first games with the Konami code, and it infamously gives you 30 lives in this game. I happen to think on a casual level, 30 lives is just about the perfect amount to get you through the entire game. Like, I think that was a well-calculated number of lives to give you with that cheat code. And I think that cheat code basically makes the game playable. It basically makes it a real video game. I would consider it like required for casual enjoyment of the game, because otherwise you're just not going to get very far in it, because it is kind of brutal, as a lot of NES games are. But this one cheat code actually makes it pretty playable. And it's fun. It's just a satisfying run and gun. I like crouching to get around the bullets, and it feels good to dodge and navigate. It's kind of like Metal Slug 2 in a way. It's not nearly as cool as Metal Slug, though. I mean, fuck that. It's just not on the same level. And the animation is nowhere near as good, of course. But that's because they had vastly inferior hardware. It's a solid NES game. This is one of the very rare NES games that is actually a real fucking video game. I've heard that every other Contra game is like impossible to complete. So weirdly enough, this brutal NES game might be the easiest in the series. Might be the most accessible title. I'm not sure. I haven't played the rest of them. And now, finally, Ghosts and Goblins. Now, I didn't play this on an actual NES. This was the only emulated one in this particular chunk of games. The rest of them I played. I own the physical release of all the rest of these. Ghosts and Goblins is a truly terrible game. It feels like a game that is kind of held back by its own need to be like stupidly cock-crushingly difficult. They just went like, you can call me a scrub any day of the week. They just went way too hard with the difficulty of this game. This version, it's worth noting, is, you know, kind of a demake of the more elaborate arcade game that I'm sure is a better, more polished experience. It definitely has better graphics, of course. But the NES game might have other like shittiness that's specific to it as well. But people were saying the arcade version was just about as bullshit. It is fucking unbearable to play. Like, I like some of the angriest I've ever been at a video game. But at the core of it all, it's a functional platformer. Like, the jumps don't feel terrible. Your character moves pretty slow, but it could work. You know, Mega Man moves slow. But they just made the game way too fucking hard. It's just way too difficult to be even remotely enjoyable. And especially the fact that it's like, meta difficult because you have to beat the game twice arbitrarily for the game to actually count it as you beating it once. It's kind of like the original Super Mario Bros. Had a similar thing, but the original Super Mario Bros. Is nowhere near the level of horse shit as Ghosts and Goblins NES. So it says I finished it here, but I save stated through the whole thing. I just cheesed, and I didn't do the second loop of the game because fuck that. And I think that unhealthy approach to difficulty was something that carried over to the remake too, and kind of botched that one in a way. I heard the remake seems a lot more solid than the original, or whatever. It's a reboot, but it's really a fucking remake. So much of it is just a direct one-for-one remake. But this game fucking sucks. Like the NES version, I just hated it. I will give it more than 1 out of 10 just for being essentially functional and having, I don't know, like mildly memorable characters. Like I do like the little demon guy that sort of torments you throughout the game. But man, it is just not fun to play. That one fucking section with like all those big like ogre dudes and a bunch of ladders that just felt like you literally had to get lucky to win. Like that shit was just unbearable. And it's just one of those things where I think about the creators of that game playtesting it, and I'm just like, who approved this? Like who played this part and was like, yep, that's fine, ship it, good game, fun game. Like it baffles me that some of those decisions got made and got left into the game. It's such a fuck you, give me quarters thing. Except it's on the NES where it's not even like draining your fucking money out of you, so they have no reason to torture you like that. Anyway, I think that is it for today, folks. I did it. I got through the NES games. And next time we're gonna start on whack games, which should also be pretty easy to go through rather quickly. But I need to take a break from speaking. I've been talking for basically 2 hours straight. So thank you for putting up with me just talking about a bunch of fucking shitty NES games that none of you care about. I appreciate you guys sitting here listening intently, or whatever, any degree of intently. I'm sure some of you are barely paying any attention, and that's fair. I don't blame you. But I enjoy doing these. I really enjoy systematically, slowly going through and reviewing each one. And I kind of can't wait till we get to the end and I can like sort them, and have all the best games at the top and just look at the list of games that are like all 9s and 10s and get pure serotonin delivered directly to my brain. Yeah, the fucking enemy respawning in the NES version. I don't know if that's the same in the arcade version, but like where you walk like a centimeter off screen and it makes an enemy come back. Fuck that. Fuck Ghosts and Goblins. Hold on. I forgot to type no here. We don't know if he recommends it or not. Shit. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. I gotta go to bed. I will post a link to this spreadsheet in the description of the VOD. How about that? And I'm going to try to do another one of these soon, but I cannot make any guarantees because I always suck at getting around to doing these. But there will be a stream tomorrow, some kind of stream. We will do it. Remains to be seen exactly what it will be. Take it easy, you guys. Thanks for listening.